Have you ever done something and thought, why did I just do that? Or reacted in a way that surprised even yourself? Maybe you've felt an irrational anger towards someone, only to realize later that they reminded you of something uncomfortable about yourself. What if I told you that these moments are glimpses into your shadow self, a part of you that exists beneath the surface, hidden even from your own awareness? Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of all time, believed that every person carries a shadow, the part of our psyche that holds our repressed thoughts, desires, and traits we'd rather not acknowledge. It's where we bury aspects of ourselves that don't align with how we want to be seen. But here's the catch. Ignoring your shadow doesn't make it disappear. In fact, the more you suppress it, the more control it has over you. It leaks out in unexpected ways, through emotional outbursts, self-sabotaging behavior, or even in how we judge others. Jung believed that true personal growth, what he called individuation, comes from confronting and integrating our shadow. In other words, if you want to become your most authentic self, you need to embrace your dark side. In this video, we'll explore what the shadow self really is, how it forms, and why acknowledging it is essential for a balanced and fulfilling life. We'll also discuss practical ways to uncover and integrate your shadow, allowing you to step into a more whole and powerful version of yourself. So, are you ready to take a deep dive into your own psyche? Because once you see your shadow, you can never unsee it. So what exactly is the shadow self? Carl Jung described it as the unconscious part of our personality, the collection of traits, desires, and impulses we reject because they don't align with how we want to see ourselves. It's everything we suppress, repress, or deny, usually because society, our upbringing, or our own self-image tells us those traits are bad or unacceptable. For example, let's say as a child, you were told that showing anger was wrong. Over time, you learn to suppress your anger, convincing yourself that you are always calm and patient. But that anger doesn't just disappear. It gets pushed into your shadow. And sooner or later, it will find its way out, maybe through passive-aggressive behavior, sudden emotional outbursts, or even self-destructive tendencies. How is the shadow formed? Jung believed that we start developing our shadow early in life. As children, we express ourselves freely. We laugh, cry, scream, and act without hesitation. But as we grow, we receive messages about which behaviors are acceptable and which are not. A child who cries easily may be told, "Stop being so sensitive." So they suppress their emotions and grow up emotionally detached. A boy who loves art and creativity may be told, "That's not practical. Focus on real work." So he buries his artistic side and follows a career path that doesn't fulfill him. A girl who is naturally assertive may be called too much, so she learns to stay quiet and struggle with self-advocacy later in life. A child who is naturally introverted may be told, "Why are you so quiet? Speak up." So they force themselves to be extroverted, but secretly feel exhausted in social settings. To fit in and be accepted, we push these parts of ourselves away. Over time, we build a public identity, the persona, the version of ourselves that we present to the world. Meanwhile, everything we suppress gets locked away in the unconscious, forming our shadow self. Here's something important. The shadow isn't just made up of negative traits. Sometimes it includes strengths and qualities we have disowned. Maybe you were raised to be humble, so you suppress your confidence, afraid of being seen as arrogant. Maybe you were told that being sensitive makes you weak, so you hide your deep emotions. These traits are not inherently bad, but because they don't fit the version of yourself that you've built, they get buried in your shadow. The more unaware we are of our shadow, the more it controls us. It influences our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in ways we don't even realize. But once we bring it to light, we gain the power to integrate it, turning our weaknesses into strengths and reclaiming lost parts of ourselves. Or, like Carl Jung says, Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And that leads to the next big question. What happens when we ignore our shadow? Many people believe that by suppressing their unwanted traits, they can avoid dealing with them altogether. But Carl Jung warned that what we don't acknowledge in ourselves doesn't just go away. It operates in the background, influencing our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in ways we don't even realize. Think of your shadow like a beach ball you're trying to keep underwater. You can push it down for a while, but eventually it's going to pop back up, often in unpredictable and even destructive ways. One of the most common ways the shadow reveals itself is through psychological projection. This happens when we see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. A person who represses their own anger might constantly complain about how everyone else is so aggressive. Someone who secretly craves attention might criticize others for always trying to be the center of attention. A person who suppresses their own need for control might constantly call others controlling without realizing they try to subtly manipulate situations themselves. A person who hides their own insecurities might call others weak or needy when they express vulnerability. A person who avoids responsibility might blame others for always making excuses. By projecting our hidden traits onto others, we avoid dealing with them within ourselves. But this only distances us from the truth of who we are. If left unchecked, the shadow can cause serious issues in our relationships, career, and mental health. Relationships. Unacknowledged traits often surface in our interactions with others, leading to conflicts, misunderstandings, and toxic relationship patterns. Self-sabotage. Many of us unconsciously hold ourselves back because of hidden fears buried in our shadow. A person who secretly fears failure might procrastinate or avoid taking risks, never realizing that they are their own worst enemy. Repressed emotions. Suppressed anger, sadness, or insecurity can lead to anxiety, depression, or even physical symptoms like stress-related illnesses. When we refuse to look at our shadow, it finds other ways to make itself known, through bad habits, emotional breakdowns, or constant dissatisfaction with life. Here's the good news. Acknowledging the shadow is the first step toward healing and transformation. Jung believed that integrating our shadow leads to greater self-awareness, emotional freedom, and authenticity. Instead of being controlled by hidden fears and repressed desires, we can learn to own them, transforming them into strengths. But how do you even begin to uncover your shadow? That's what we'll explore next. If the shadow is hidden in the unconscious, how do we even begin to identify it? The truth is, our shadow constantly reveals itself. We just need to know where to look. Here are some powerful methods to uncover the hidden aspects of your personality. Pay attention to your triggers. One of the easiest ways to spot your shadow is to notice what triggers strong emotional reactions in you. Do you feel intense dislike toward people who boast about their achievements? Perhaps you were taught to be humble and now suppress your own desire to feel proud of your accomplishments. Do you get annoyed by people who always ask for help? Maybe you were conditioned to be independent and now struggle to ask for support when you need it. Do you find yourself hating people who seem carefree and irresponsible? Maybe a part of you craves freedom but feels guilty for wanting it. The things we judge in others often reflect something unacknowledged within ourselves. Instead of dismissing your triggers, ask yourself, what does this say about me? 2. Examine your projections. As we discussed earlier, projection is when we attribute our own hidden traits to others. A useful exercise is to reflect on the qualities you frequently criticize in others. Carl Jung says, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Try asking yourself, what qualities in others irritate me the most? Could this be something I secretly struggle with myself? Am I denying this trait in myself, even though I see it in others? For example, if you often criticize others for being too sensitive, it could mean you were taught to suppress your own emotions and see vulnerability as a weakness. If you frequently accuse others of being selfish, you might struggle with setting boundaries or advocating for your own needs. If you always accuse others of lying or being deceptive, it may indicate that you are uncomfortable with honesty, especially about your own flaws or weaknesses. If you resent people who seem too free-spirited or careless, it could mean you have an inner desire to be more spontaneous, but suppress it in order to be responsible. If you look down on people who follow the rules too much, it may mean that deep down you struggle with your own rebellious nature, but try to act like you don't care. These patterns can reveal aspects of your shadow. Projection is a way for the unconscious mind to deflect uncomfortable truths. Recognizing these patterns can help bring your shadow into the light. 3. Explore your childhood conditioning. Many of the traits in our shadow were formed in childhood. Reflect on the messages you received growing up. Were you told certain emotions were unacceptable? Were you encouraged to act a certain way to gain approval? Were parts of your personality labeled as bad or wrong? For example, if you were scolded for being loud and energetic, you might have learned to suppress your natural enthusiasm. If you were taught that vulnerability is a weakness, you may struggle to express your emotions today. Looking at childhood patterns helps you understand what parts of yourself you may have disowned. 4. Pay attention to your dreams. Jung believed the shadow self often appears in dreams, symbolized by certain figures. Here are some dream examples. You dream of being chased by a dark figure. This could represent a part of yourself that you are avoiding in your waking life. You see an angry or violent person in your dream. This might symbolize suppressed aggression or frustration that you don't consciously acknowledge. You dream about a rival or an enemy. This might symbolize a trait in yourself that you deny but project onto someone else. You keep dreaming about losing control in public. Maybe you suppress your fears of failure or embarrassment, and your subconscious is trying to force you to confront them. Instead of dismissing dreams, consider writing them down and asking, what is this trying to tell me about myself? These dream symbols might represent aspects of yourself that you've rejected. Instead of fearing them, try to understand what they are trying to tell you. 5. Journal and self-reflection. Writing down your thoughts can be a powerful way to bring the unconscious into awareness. Ask yourself deep questions such as, what parts of myself do I try to hide from others? What am I afraid people will find out about me? What do I admire in others that I don't express myself? The more honest you are, the more insights you'll gain. Recognizing your shadow is just the first step. The real transformation comes when you learn to integrate it into your conscious self. In the next section, we'll explore how embracing your shadow can lead to profound personal growth. Discovering your shadow is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you integrate it, meaning you accept and consciously work with the hidden parts of yourself rather than denying or suppressing them. But let's be clear, integrating your shadow doesn't mean acting out negative traits or indulging destructive behaviors. It means acknowledging these traits, understanding them, and channeling them in a way that serves you rather than controls you. Here are a few tips. 1. Practice radical self-awareness. To integrate your shadow, you must first be honest with yourself. This means embracing the uncomfortable truth that you are not just your best qualities. You are also the traits you dislike in others. Instead of saying, I have no fears, say, I do have fears, but acknowledging them helps me grow. Instead of, I'm not defensive, consider, there are moments when I feel defensive, and I want to be more open-minded. Instead of, I never lie. Ask yourself, are there times when I hide the truth, even from myself? This shift from denial to awareness is the first step toward growth, and this is how shadow integration begins. Carl Jung describes this process beautifully by saying, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens." 2. Accept. Don't suppress. Once you identify aspects of your shadow, the next step is to accept them without shame or judgment. Suppression only pushes these traits further into the unconscious, where they continue to influence behavior in ways beyond conscious control. Instead of rejecting these parts of yourself, acknowledge them as natural elements of being human. Self-acceptance does not mean indulging in negative behaviors or allowing destructive tendencies to take over. Rather, it involves recognizing these hidden aspects and understanding why they exist. Many traits labeled as undesirable are responses to past experiences, conditioning, or survival mechanisms developed over time. By facing them with awareness, they lose their unconscious grip and become aspects of the self that can be worked with rather than feared. The process of acceptance requires self-compassion. It's easy to feel shame when confronted with traits that contradict one's ideal self-image, but integration happens through curiosity and understanding, not through guilt or self-criticism. The goal is to bring unconscious elements into the light of awareness, allowing for personal growth and transformation. 3. Find the gold in the shadow. Jung believed that the shadow is not just a place of darkness, it also holds hidden strengths. Many of the traits we suppress can actually empower us once we integrate them. A person who suppresses anger might discover that, when used wisely, their anger can fuel self-advocacy and boundary setting. Someone who hides their ambition might realize that embracing it can help them achieve great things. Instead of seeing your shadow as something negative, ask how it can serve you in a healthy way. 4. Shadow work exercises. Here are a few practical ways to integrate your shadow. Dialogue with your shadow. Imagine your shadow as a separate entity and have a conversation with it. Ask, "What are you trying to teach me?" Shadow journaling. Write down traits you dislike in others and explore how they might exist in you. Creative expression. Art, music, or writing can be powerful ways to explore suppressed emotions. Therapy, or inner work. Working with a therapist or engaging in guided self-reflection can help you process deeper shadow aspects. When you integrate your shadow, you become more authentic, more creative, and more emotionally resilient. You stop projecting your fears onto others and start embracing your whole self, strengths and weaknesses alike. Most importantly, shadow work leads to wholeness, a deep sense of self-acceptance and inner peace. But how do we put all of this together and apply it in daily life? The journey of shadow work is not about eliminating the parts of ourselves we find uncomfortable. It's about acknowledging and integrating them so we can live with greater authenticity, balance, and inner peace. Carl Jung believed that true individuation, the process of becoming a whole and fulfilled person, requires us to embrace all aspects of ourselves, the light and the dark. Ignoring the shadow only leads to inner conflict, projection, and emotional suppression. But when we turn toward it with curiosity instead of fear, we uncover valuable insights about who we truly are. Every trait, every emotion, and every impulse we've buried holds the potential for self-discovery and transformation. By bringing the shadow into conscious awareness, we take control of the aspects of our personality that once operated in the background. This leads to deeper self-awareness, understanding why we think, feel, and act the way we do. Improved relationships, recognizing and reducing projections onto others. Greater emotional resilience. Learning to work with our emotions rather than suppress them. Unlocking hidden strengths. Reclaiming qualities we've denied ourselves. Shadow integration doesn't happen overnight. It's a continuous process of self-reflection, honesty, and self-compassion. But each step forward brings us closer to a version of ourselves that is more real, more powerful, and more complete. So, what parts of yourself have you been avoiding? What emotions or desires have you pushed away? What qualities in others trigger strong reactions in you? These are all invitations to look deeper, to explore the parts of yourself that have been waiting to be acknowledged. Facing the shadow is not easy, but it is one of the most rewarding journeys you can take. When you integrate your shadow, you no longer live in fear of your hidden self. Instead, you embrace it as an essential part of who you are, one that makes you whole. And in doing so, you step into your power. The journey of self-discovery is never easy, but it is the key to true personal growth. When you embrace your shadow, you step into a more powerful, authentic version of yourself. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and most importantly, keep growing. If this video resonated with you, and you want to dive even deeper into psychology, self-awareness, and personal transformation, make sure to subscribe. There's so much more to uncover, and I'd love for you to be part of this journey. Hit that subscribe button and let's continue this exploration together. Thank you.